On a stark September morning in 1920, the opulent calm of Paris's Hôtel Ritz was shattered by a chilling discovery. Inside the lavish royal suite, Olive Thomas, silent screen siren and Hollywood's brightest flame, lay lifeless on the cold marble floor. Draped in a sumptuous sable opera cape, her hand clutched a vial of bichloride of mercury, its contents as deadly as the fame that consumed her. The valet who found her froze in horror, the air thick with the weight of tragedy. Her meteoric rise from small-town shopgirl to Hollywood royalty had dazzled the world, but whispers of scandal followed her every step. Her turbulent marriage to Jack Pickford, a notorious Playboy and brother of Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart, fed the tabloids, their volatile relationship exposed for all to see. Behind the glittering facade, however, Olive's life was anything but a fairy tale. When news of her death spread, it ignited a storm of speculation. Rumors of dealings with Paris's criminal underworld, secret meetings with a drug dealer, and a mysterious illness painted a far darker portrait of the beloved star. Allegations of foul play, a suspicious life insurance policy, and whispers of a cover-up by Hollywood's powerful Pickford dynasty deepened the mystery. Were these the cruel inventions of a society eager to tear down its brightest stars? Or breadcrumbs leading to a far more sinister truth? Did Olive Thomas orchestrate her own tragic finale as haunting and dramatic as her films? Or was she caught in a deadly web of deception, a pawn sacrificed to protect the powerful? With suspicion falling on Jack Pickford and his family, what secrets were they so desperate to hide? In a city built on illusion, where does the truth begin? Join us as we unravel the tangled threads of Olive Thomas's life. From her humble beginnings in a small town to the dazzling lights of Hollywood, and finally, to her mysterious final days in Paris. Was her death a desperate cry for freedom, or the final curtain call in a carefully staged conspiracy? If you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. With over 70 captivating biographies and new content every week, your support helps us bring these fascinating stories to life. Now let's dive into the dark destruction of Olive Thomas. Olive Vetta Duffy was born on October 20th, 1894, in the coal mining town of Charleroi, Pennsylvania. It was a world defined by soot and survival, where childhood dreams were often eclipsed by the harsh realities of industrial life. Olive's father died when she was just 12, leaving her mother to shoulder the burden of raising Olive and her two younger brothers. To support the family, her mother took a factory job, and the family moved into the suburban Pittsburgh home of Olive's grandparents. 3 years later, Olive dropped out of high school and went to work as a salesgirl in a local department store. She was barely 16 when she married Bernard Krug Thomas, taking the surname that would one day become infamous. But Olive was not built for small-town life or small-town expectations. By the time she turned 18, she had left Bernard behind and made her way to New York City, determined to forge a new path. In Manhattan, Olive bunked with a relative in Harlem and took another department store job, but her ambitions far outpaced her circumstances. In 1914, she entered and won a beauty contest, earning the title of the most beautiful girl in New York City. The victory wasn't just a title. It was her gateway into the world of artist modeling. Olive began posing for painters and illustrators whose works graced the covers of magazines and advertisements. Her beauty was striking, otherworldly even. Her eyes, often described as violet or deep blue-black, stood in stark contrast to her translucent white skin. Though these mesmerizing eyes would never be captured in full color on screen, they became a hallmark of her painted portraits. After a year of modeling, Olive approached the entertainment titan Florenz Ziegfeld and asked for a spot in his legendary Ziegfeld Follies. Beautiful girls were plentiful in Ziegfeld's world, but Olive stood out. She joined the Follies in 1915, her entry-level role consisting of little more than standing on stage looking lovely, while more established performers commanded the spotlight. Behind the scenes, Olive reportedly began an affair with Ziegfeld. Not long after, she filed for divorce from her husband. Her career in the Follies soared as she rose through the ranks, earning $75 a week, a sum equivalent to about $1,800 today. Ziegfeld himself ensured Olive's ascent. In 1916, Olive was chosen as Miss January for the Follies' groundbreaking Girl of the Month calendar. Later that year, she was promoted to a featured singer in the Midnight Frolics, Ziegfeld's risque rooftop revue at the New Amsterdam Theater. Beneath the venue's infamous glass ceiling, patrons would watch Olive dance in daring costumes, some made entirely of balloons that audience members were encouraged to pop with their cigars. The Frolics epitomized the Jazz Age's decadence, but Olive's ambitions extended far beyond the stage. In 1916, Olive made her first film appearance in Beatrice Fairfax, a serial shot in Ithaca, New York. 6 months later, she landed her first feature role in A Girl Like That, a Paramount production that caught the attention of producer-director Thomas Ince. Ince, one-third of the creative force behind Triangle Pictures, saw Olive's potential. By 1917, Olive had starred in 6 films under Triangle Pictures, where she was marketed as the ultimate girl next door. Her career was flourishing, but it wasn't just her professional life that made headlines. She had also caught the eye of Hollywood royalty. While performing in the Follies, Olive met Jack Pickford, the youngest member of the illustrious Pickford family. His sister, Mary Pickford, was America's sweetheart and the most famous actress of her time. Jack, however, was more notorious than celebrated. Handsome and charming, he had a reputation as a playboy known for his partying. Despite his reckless nature, or perhaps because of it, Olive was captivated. Jack won her heart with grand romantic gestures, including a platinum cigarette case valued at the modern equivalent of $100,000. The couple secretly married in New Jersey in 1916, but their union remained a secret for over a year. The secrecy wasn't unfounded. Mary Pickford disapproved of Olive, dismissing her as a musical comedy girl unworthy of the Pickford name. In Mary's view, the Ziegfeld Follies were one step above prostitution, with their scantily clad performers and wealthy male patrons. She considered Olive a gold digger with questionable morals, a chorus girl trying to climb her way into Hollywood aristocracy, while Pickford herself had come from vaudeville and talked how she climbed up from the gutter. To her, Follies girls were beneath even that. Olive, for her part, was fiercely independent. She was determined not to rely on the Pickford name to advance her career, wanting to prove that her success was her own. Jack's reputation as a party boy preceded him. He was a high-functioning alcoholic and part of an infamous circle of early Hollywood playboys that included director Marshall Nealon and actor Lou Cody. While rumors of drug use surrounded Jack, there's little evidence that he was the heroin addict some have claimed. More likely, he indulged in cocaine, a common vice in 1910s Hollywood, and alcohol, earning him the description of being always pleasant and always loaded. Professionally, Jack managed moderate success, starring in films like Great Expectations and 2 popular adaptations of Mark Twain novels. But off-screen, he remained a figure of scandal, rumored to have contracted syphilis. According to Olive Thomas's biographer, Jack Pickford contracted syphilis in 1917, just a year after his marriage to Olive. Scott Eyman, in his book on Mary Pickford, claimed that Jack was known around Hollywood as Mr. Syphilis. Jack's defenders claim it was all a rumor, started by Ziegfeld, when Jack moved in on another Follies girl 2 years after Olive's death. Regardless, Jack and Olive's relationship was as tempestuous as it was passionate. When they were together, they spent nights drinking, dancing, and outdoing each other with lavish gifts, like sports cars, which they both crashed into pedestrians in the wee hours of the morning. When apart, they pursued their careers on opposite coasts, their marriage strained by distance and the chaos of their lifestyles. In 1918, Jack Pickford volunteered for the U.S. Navy, not out of patriotism, but to avoid being drafted by his home country of Canada. However, his military service quickly became mired in scandal. According to reports, Jack acted as the middleman in a bribery scheme that allowed wealthy slackers to pay for cushy, non-combat naval assignments. His involvement in the slacker scandal almost earned him a dishonorable discharge, but his mother's intervention saved his reputation. At least partially. The Pickford family, led by the fiercely protective Mary and their mother Charlotte, had maintained a squeaky clean public image up until this point. Mary, the reigning America's sweetheart, had carefully controlled the press to avoid any hint of scandal. Mary, at age 26, was still playing children, although she was about to start the secret affair that would lead her to embark on Hollywood's first superstar divorce. In 1920, when Jack's participation in the scandal broke, it became the first media event that the Pickford women couldn't entirely suppress. What shame Jack must have felt, needing his mother to salvage his good name, and what fury he must have faced from Mary, whose carefully constructed family reputation now had its first major crack. While Jack was causing trouble in the Navy, Olive Thomas was navigating the pressures of Hollywood stardom. Still young and headstrong, she bristled at the endless grind of filming schedules. Her rebellious streak was evident even early in her career. When cinematographer Billy Bitzer, known for his work with D.W. Griffith, was tasked with shooting a screen test for Olive, she persuaded him to stop for a drink at the Alexandria Hotel on the way. When a friend joined and Olive ordered a second drink, Bitzer became angry, declaring, "You can have another drink or you can have the screen test, but not both." Olive, unbothered, chose the drink. Despite her defiance, Olive was in high demand. By late 1918, her contract with Triangle Pictures was ending, and she was searching for a new studio home. Triangle was unraveling. Its founding directors had left, and the studio's future was bleak. Olive signed with Selznick Pictures, a new company launched by Myron Selznick, the ambitious 19-year-old son of pioneering distributor Louis J. Selznick, and brother of future mogul David O. Selznick. Olive became the flagship star of the studio, and Myron spared no expense promoting her. Olive's contract with Selznick Pictures set a grueling pace. She was expected to star in 8 films a year, a workload that left little room for her personal life. Though the studio gave her advances on her salary, her accounts were frequently overdrawn, hinting at a lifestyle of indulgence. Olive delivered on her contract, appearing in 8 films in 1919, though 2 were leftover Triangle productions. Her official debut for Selznick was Upstairs and Down, 1919, a society comedy in which she played a baby vamp, a naive young woman whose budding sexuality causes chaos. While most of Olive's films are lost, the roles she took suggest she was cast as a mischievous and effervescent character, capturing a kind of light-hearted rebellion. One of Olive's more intriguing roles was in Toten the Apache, 1919, in which she played a dual role. Unfortunately, like so much of her work, this film is lost to history. Olive was also allowed to develop the scenario for one of her final films, Youthful Folly, though this project too has vanished. The film that best survives Olive's legacy is The Flapper, 1920, a comedy written by the celebrated screenwriter Frances Marion. Often credited with popularizing the term flapper, the film helped define Olive's star persona. However, the movie's portrayal of rebellion was tame by later jazz-age standards. Olive played a precocious boarding school girl who dabbles in flirtation and sneaks off to dance at a New York cafe. Early scenes show her in demure Edwardian dresses, complete with oversized bows, but as her character imagines herself as a worldly vamp, she adopts more daring outfits, a sleeveless shift and even a dramatic floor-length gown with a peacock-feathered hat. Yet the title The Flapper is ironic. The film refrains from fully embracing the wild, devil-may-care spirit associated with the term. Instead, it depicts youthful rebellion as playful rather than subversive. By late 1919, Olive Thomas was embracing a cosmopolitan lifestyle that mirrored her rising fame. In an interview with a magazine reporter, she proudly gave a tour of her newly renovated New York apartment, a sanctuary she had designed as her home base while filming on the East Coast. During the conversation, Olive reflected on the challenges of her marriage to Jack Pickford, offering a rare glimpse into their complex relationship. At first, I just couldn't get used to the idea of living this way, she admitted. But I suppose one gets used to anything given time. When we were together, we used to use up the time fighting over things. I'd say, you were out with this person or that person, and he'd come back at me the same way, and we'd have a lively time of it. But we're over that now. We know we can't sit home by the fireside all the time just because we cannot be together. Her words suggested that Olive and Jack had settled into an unspoken, don't ask, don't tell arrangement when it came to their time apart. A pragmatic solution for a marriage stretched thin by long separations. While Olive's work kept her anchored on the East Coast, Jack's mother and sister were encouraging him to establish a production company on the West Coast. Olive was acutely aware that the Pickford family's meddling might lead to a permanent estrangement. In the late summer of 1920, Olive and Jack planned a trip to Paris, billing it as a second honeymoon. The truth, however, was more complicated. They had never taken a first honeymoon. Olive's relentless work schedule had always taken precedence over their marriage. For the first time since their wedding, they were making a concerted effort to spend significant time together and repair their strained relationship. Records from Selznick Pictures show that Olive was abruptly taken off the studio's payroll just 4 days before their departure. There's no official explanation for the suspension, leaving its meaning open to interpretation. By this time, the studio system was beginning to formalize its practices, and stars were sometimes docked pay for insisting on vacations without promotional value. It's also possible that Olive had a falling out with Myron Selznick. Though she was well-liked within the industry, Olive had not been a major box office draw during her career. Her films were never mentioned among the highest-grossing releases of the era, and there's evidence that her professional reputation may have been slipping. Though Olive's contract had recently been renewed, her career was at a crossroads. In the summer of 1920, she shot scenes for a film titled Jenny, but the project was never completed. Her most recent release, The Flapper, had premiered in May, leaving a noticeable 3-month gap without a new Olive Thomas film. An unusual stretch for an actress whose contract stipulated a new movie every 6 weeks. 2 additional films, Darling Mine and another unnamed production, were in the pipeline, but Darling Mine didn't premiere until Olive was already en route to Europe. Whether Olive's suspension prompted her trip to Paris or the trip caused her suspension remains unclear. After boarding the ship to Paris in the late summer of 1920, Olive Thomas seemed determined to make the best of her trip. She even threw Jack Pickford a birthday party on board. Their destination, the Hôtel Ritz, promised glamour and a chance for the couple to reconnect. But the cracks in their relationship remained visible. Shortly after arriving, Jack left Olive behind to travel to London with Owen Moore, Mary Pickford's ex-husband, on the pretense of buying suits. Olive stayed in Paris alone, waiting for Jack's return. Jack was back by September 5th, and that night, the couple went out to Parisian nightclubs. Jack later claimed they returned to the Ritz together at 3 a.m. Others, however, reported seeing them partying separately at various locations. Regardless, they planned to fly to London the next morning. Jack went straight to bed, but Olive, unable to sleep, began writing a letter to her mother. Jack, irritated by the desk lamp, asked her to turn it off. She complied and went to the bathroom. Moments later, she swallowed bichloride of mercury. 4 days later, Olive was dead. Why did Olive swallow the contents of a bottle marked with a skull and crossbones? The accounts of that night are frustratingly vague, with no definitive explanation. Reports differ as to whether Olive consumed poisonous tablets, swallowed a solution mixed with alcohol, or mistook a cleaning fluid for water. Bichloride of mercury was commonly used at the time as both a cleaning agent and a topical treatment for syphilis. Some suggest the solution had been prepared by Jack to treat his condition, but left carelessly in the bathroom. Others speculate Olive was drunk or disoriented, reaching for what she thought were sleeping pills in the dark. An investigation was launched in Paris, but it was quickly derailed once the powerful Pickford family stepped in to control the narrative. What remains are conflicting accounts: Jack's version of events, Mary Pickford's sanitized autobiography, and unreliable counter-narratives that fill in the gaps with speculation. In his initial statement, Jack claimed Olive cried out, "Oh my God," from the bathroom. He rushed to her side, finding her collapsed, the bottle of bichloride of mercury nearby. Jack said he immediately forced her to drink water and egg whites in an effort to induce vomiting, but Olive's condition did not improve. A doctor was summoned and pumped her stomach 3 times, yet it wasn't until 5 hours later that Olive was admitted to the hospital. Jack insisted that rumors of wild parties, drug use, or marital discord were entirely false. However, inconsistencies in his account raised questions. Why had it taken so long to get Olive to the hospital? Why was such a dangerous substance left accessible in their bathroom? And why, as the New York Times reported, had Olive taken out a significant life insurance policy shortly before the trip? In her memoirs, Mary Pickford largely echoed Jack's account, but shifted blame onto the hotel. She claimed the bottle of bichloride of mercury tablets had been left in the bathroom next to aspirin, suggesting it was a tragic mistake. Yet Mary offered no explanation for why such tablets were in the bathroom in the first place, conveniently sidestepping questions about Jack's role in the events. Owen Moore, Jack's travel companion and Mary's ex-husband, added another layer of ambiguity. He suggested Olive had been unwell even before leaving America, calling her high-strung and nervous. He posited that she had accidentally taken the poison in place of her prescribed sleeping medicine. His statement, however, seemed tailored to absolve Jack of blame. American newspapers began spinning sensational tales of Olive's last night in Paris. One report claimed she had visited illegal nightclubs where patrons drank cocktails laced with ether and watched grotesque spectacles, such as fights between women or a man eating a live rat. While these stories served to deflect attention from Jack Pickford, they also painted Olive as a reckless participant in Paris's underworld, a narrative that shifted blame away from Hollywood and onto the city itself. This vilification of Parisian nightlife, whether orchestrated by the Pickford family or a media ploy to please them, succeeded in burying questions about Jack's possible negligence. Yet the very implausibility of these tales fueled alternative theories. 2 major counter-narratives emerged over the years. Kenneth Anger in Hollywood Babylon suggested that Olive ended her life after failing to procure drugs for Jack. However, this theory conflicts with Anger's other claims, linking Olive to Captain Spaulding, a known drug smuggler in the area, whose arrest was tenuously tied to her death. If Olive had such connections, why would she struggle to obtain drugs? In addition, Anger has her being found alone in her hotel room with the bottle of bichloride in her hand when every account says Jack was in the hotel with her. Anger's account, as with so much in Hollywood Babylon, while interesting, is certainly sensationalized. Another theory suggests Olive's death was the result of despair over contracting syphilis from Jack. While rumors of Jack's illness are widespread, there is little concrete evidence to confirm this claim. Still, Jack's reputation as a careless and reckless partner lends credibility to the idea that his behavior contributed, directly or indirectly, to Olive's tragic end. What remains undeniable is that the Pickford family's influence shaped public perception of Olive's death. Jack was portrayed as a grieving widower, while stories of Olive's supposed recklessness painted her as a tragic but flawed figure. Within 2 years, Jack had remarried another former Follies girl, Marilyn Miller, whose own husband had recently died. Shortly after their 1922 wedding, newspapers published scandalous photographs of Jack and Marilyn canoodling near the graves of their late spouses. The images caused a public uproar, with many deeming the display tasteless and disrespectful. This controversy further cemented Jack's reputation as a reckless and morally questionable figure in Hollywood. The incident also tarnished the reputation of Marilyn, now a celebrated Broadway star, who found herself dragged into the whirlwind of Jack's turbulent life. Their marriage, marked by public scandals and private discord, lasted just 5 tumultuous years before ending in divorce. Jack attempted marriage once more, but his destructive lifestyle caught up with him. In 1932, he died at the age of 36 in the very same Paris hospital where Olive had passed 12 years earlier. His death was attributed to multiple neuritis, a condition affecting the nerves and brain, which can be caused by infections such as syphilis. Olive Thomas's funeral drew 15,000 mourners, solidifying her as Hollywood's first star to become more famous in death than in life. Her films, re-released in the wake of her passing, reached larger audiences than they had during her career, ensuring her face and her story remained etched in the memory of cinema. But this posthumous fame came at a cost. The truth of Olive's life was buried beneath sensational headlines and carefully crafted narratives, leaving us to wonder who she truly was behind the camera. A few of her films survived the passage of time, fragments of a legacy that was both illuminated and overshadowed by tragedy. But her enduring mystery is what keeps her name alive. Was her death a tragic accident, a moment of recklessness, or something more sinister? Was Jack careless or complicit? And why was the truth about that night so carefully guarded by those with power to shape her story? What do you think really happened in that Paris hotel room? Was Olive a victim of her own wild spirit, Jack's negligence, or the pressures of a life lived too brightly, too quickly? Let me know your opinion in the comments. And thank you so much for watching this week's video on Olive Thomas. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear more stories like this in the future. We now have over 70 biographies on the channel. Be sure to check them out and let me know which ones are your favorites. A huge thank you to our patrons: Velocity Girl, ZenLife68, Jillian Barker, Junie Moon, Philip Gallegos, Kingsley Clark, Kafum Chung, Harry Thurston, Michelle Lynn Neal, Karen Craig, Bavia Andrea, Tracy Walsh, Joy McGuire, Elizabeth, CTS Bathory, America Marie, Amber Perry, Amanda Lynn, Snowball, The Inappropriate Heifer, Kendra McNally, Marianne Nelson, Deborah Shepard, Ida Kloster Jensen, Kay Falomi, Jules Mack, Black Knight 5897, Sammy Lott, Maureen Thompson, Karen Possible, Joanne Thomas Yakedo, Beverly Cox Thompson, DDH, Beth Dawson, and Kimberly Rhea. Your support makes everything we do possible. Special congratulations to this week's trivia winners: Lisa Craig, 4585, and Rena 5238. Well done. A big thank you to everyone who watches until the end. We've had incredible growth, and I'm so grateful to have all of you on this journey. Until next week, stay curious, keep exploring history, and as always, thanks for watching.